You don't have to have 20, 30 years of experience and 15 different certifications to be a consultant. You just have to know this much more than what somebody else does to be able to help them. Obviously, you need to make sure that you're accurate at that.
It's time to pivot in your confidence, career, and compensation with the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast every Monday and Thursday. Now, get ready for a special interview curated just for you. Welcome back to the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast series. I'm Candace, your host, pivot master, and career wellness strategist. And today we are diving into a fascinating journey of career and business empowerment. But before we dive in, I always ask, stop right now, hit that subscribe button, and share this episode with your friends. And don't forget to leave us a comment as we chat today. We want to hear from you what resonated with you, and then also suggest other industry or fields that you want to hear from, business and entrepreneurs inside those industries. We love to hear from you so we can continue giving you content that is going to help you make the pivot in your own purpose. Now, I've had an opportunity to sit down virtually and in real life with today's guest. And trust me, you are in for a treat from a true trailblazer. She's the founder and CEO of Clinical HR LLC, a firm that empowers dental and medical practices with strategic HR systems. Her unique work revolves around cultivating leadership skills, managing employee relations, and implementing competitive total reward systems for these practices. Please join me in welcoming the dynamic HR guru, Kara Kelley. Welcome, Kara. We're so happy to have you here today.
Oh, thank you, Candace. I'm so honored to be here. And oh my goodness, the way that you described me makes me sound far cooler than I really am.
Listen,
Just ask my teenagers.
Man, they sure keep us honest, don't they?
Indeed.
Love it. No, so as I said, I had an opportunity to sit down with you and hear your unique story. And I did no justice even in my intro. So I'm glad you were impressed by it. But tell us about you and your career journey. You're doing all these major things in this specific field. But I love to hear the Kara version of how you got to where you are today in your career.
Well, when people ask me this, I tell them it's a combination of serendipity and adaptability, to be honest.
Love it.
As far as, how I got into HR and how I got into working with medical practices, kind of similar stories where I fell into it by accident somehow. I actually, when I graduated high school, went to go get a license for massage therapy and started my first business when I was 18, doing something that I was really passionate about and I really enjoyed doing, and did that for about 10 years actually. And while I was starting my business, I decided, hey, it would be a good idea for me to go to school and maybe get a marketing degree. This is probably something that would complement really well. I'm creative and enjoy marketing. Let's do this. So I did. I went to school and started studying for a marketing degree and took my first HR class as a general business credit and just fell in love with it. So I went and switched my major and ended up, like you said, with a bachelor's in business with a concentration in human resource management, and haven't looked back. And as I told you before, when we talked recently, I think I'm one of the few people that I know that's actually using my degree for what it's intended.
That is unique. I'll be honest with you.
It's when my kids tell me that they aren't really sure what they want to do after college and may not go right away, I say, you know what? That is perfectly fine. There is no sense in getting yourself into student loan debt if you don't know what you want to do.
Preach, Kara.
Wait a year and a half, wait 2 years, wait 5, but go whenever you know what you want to do. Because I promise it's amazing when you actually get to use what you went to school for.
Yeah.
Somewhere toward the end of my bachelor's program, I had decided, I probably want to go ahead and use my HR degree, the, newly minted HR degree that I switched to, and go work in a corporate office somewhere. I'll go start as an HR assistant or a coordinator and work my way up through that ladder, generalist, manager, director, so on and so forth. I had all these ambitious dreams of corporate domination in the HR space. And none of that happened. Because I was self-employed at the time, I had this grand idea that, back in 2012, when we didn't just hire the first person who showed up on time and sober, that employers that employers would want to hire somebody who had some kind of job experience. I said, okay, I'm doing this massage work. I can go take a part-time job doing something, just so I have something on my resume other than self-employment at this point. So I did. I found a job working for a CPA firm, doing of all things marketing, to start with anyway. And it turned out to be a dental CPA firm that served dental practices as well as some other medical practices, other private practices in the healthcare space. So working with chiropractors, vets, dermatologists, vascular interventionists, of all things. Yeah. And so I had some medical clients when I worked there, and it turned out I was there for about 7 years or so. I never left. I never went to that corporate HR position I thought I had. I actually carved
Mm,
myself out a role there as eventually what was an HR and business development consultant, doing everything from client relations to a little bit of tax prep here and there, a little bookkeeping here and there. Did all the marketing for the firm, built the website for the firm, did PR, taught accounting 101 occasionally, worked with clients to draft business plans to get funding for banks for their acquisitions or their startups. And I also did a little HR internally as well as advising for the
you
firm.
used a little bit of that degree, right?
Yeah, I actually did use a little bit of that degree, but that's really what I loved. And as I kind of worked there a little bit longer, um, so I was saying, look, I really am passionate about this HR side of things. I'd really love to grow this side versus me doing marketing, but I have so many other tasks on my plate. Can we, maybe pull some of those off? And that never really ended up happening. So back in 2019, one of the state agencies that serves dental practices, the State Association for General Dentistry, they reached out to us and asked if we would provide some content for a business program that they were creating, their business track. And so we were going to do a day on practice finance. It was about 7 hours of content. And my boss at the time was like, so what are you going to be teaching? Like, I'm not an accountant and I'm not going to be teaching this. Yeah, well, that didn't happen. We spent a couple months building out all this curriculum, and I ended up presenting 3.5 hours of the 7 for this
Mm,
one program. I said, okay, well, this is something new. Let's see if we can do more of this training and education and speaking. And toward the end of that year, we were looking at putting this course online. And this, of course, was before the pandemic and before everybody was burnt out to all get out on
mhm,
virtual learning. I said, okay, we'll make an online course. And my boss at the time was like, well, why don't you just go ahead and put some of your HR stuff in there too? We can, do some HR courses. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do all of the work for this, if I'm going to be putting out my content and my IP and whatnot, most people don't think of HR training when they think of a CPA firm. So I'd really like to do it under my own branding, my own
mm.
LLC, make it my own baby. He said, okay, yeah, sounds great. Go do that. So I did. I started my LLC, and then a couple months later, I started getting invitations for podcasts and speaking engagements and things of that nature. And all of a sudden, my work at the firm started drying up a little bit. And about the end of February 2020,
Right
if
before the
anybody's keeping
pandemic,
track,
right?
if anybody's keeping track of what that day was, end of February 2020, I wake up to an email that says termination of employment. No actual reason given, just termination of employment. But okay, you know what? I guess I have time to go to the gym today.
What a response. Love it.
I had not been loving the work that I was doing. The stuff that I didn't enjoy doing was not being taken off my plate. I know that I really wasn't invested anymore mentally. I was not giving it 110% that I had given before, and I was really wanting to focus on HR, working with healthcare practices and their human resources. And so honestly, I wasn't upset. I was just like, oh, okay, so that happened.
Mm,
And so I said, okay, let me take a couple weeks and figure this out, figure out what I want to do, maybe work on building some content. I don't really want to do consulting. I think I'm going to just work on maybe building out speaking and training and work on that side of the business. Then 3 weeks later, we had a pandemic,
mm. I know
and
we
all of a
all remember
sudden,
that.
yeah, they ask you like, do you remember where you were whenever 9/11 happened or when JFK and assassination occurred? Do you remember the moment when you found out that we were in a pandemic and oh my gosh, I know I do.
Yes,
Because I
same
started
here.
having former clients. Started having
Mm,
former clients reach out. They're like, "What are we doing?" All of this legislation was getting passed, and in this like lightning fashion. FFCRA, Families First Coronavirus Response Act, was one of them, and I I just started diving in and learning as much as I could to be able to answer a lot of these questions. About a week or so after that, my former boss reached out to me on my new corporate email address and asked if I would do a webinar for clients because they had questions about FFCRA of all things. So,
And this is the former boss that terminated
uh
you?
huh,
Okay,
via
come
email
on.
with no reason. Yes,
Oh,
after seven and a half
wow.
years.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely.
Now that's a
And
story. I don't know if I picked that up the first time we talked.
I had several people that are like, "Are you crazy? Why would you do that?" I said, "Because I'm a professional." Put another word
Come
in
on.
there, but because I'm a professional.
It's okay. We curse here.
Anyway, so I said, "Yes, I'll do it." And I got my first couple clients off of that webinar actually. And then ended up doing it about 40 more times that year for various groups. And by the end of that year, I was back to being 100% a consultant. I was in the black with my business after a fair few months, quite honestly, because
Wow.
I just threw myself into working into it, and taking on clients and getting on information and trying to be as helpful as I possibly could, which turned out to be an amazing source of information first marketing.
Love it.
And I had my niche already. I had my services, my clients. I knew exactly what my
Mm,
positioning was, my marketing was, and it really took off from there. I'm now about to this month will be my fourth anniversary, I think, of my company.
wow.
So yeah, so I'm excited
Wow.
for what's coming up in the next couple of years or so. But that's really the gist of how I got here. Things
Yes.
that I never planned on. Just throw that life plan out the window. It's not going to happen.
That's a whole bar right there, Kara. And so that was such a, I mean, so it's a lot of steps to the journey. And I'm going to try my best to, it's one that stood out. And we got to go back to 18 because
Sure.
I had so many thoughts. And as I was listening to you, just being able to see a reflection of your courage in you telling your story. So you decided at 18 that you were going to start a business, right? And I'm not saying that many people don't do that. Probably now more people are doing that, but that requires some confidence and some courage early in your career to say, before I go work in corporate America and go work for a college, I'm going to try it out on my own. Tell me kind of where were you at mentally and emotionally there that gave you the confidence to say, I'm going to start my own business with what I know right now, knowing less than the average
Well,
entrepreneur who the average entrepreneur starts like past 35 years old, like 18. That's amazing.
so my father was an entrepreneur and he owned several businesses, and I watched him
Wow.
growing up. And actually, my first office space was out of one of his offices. So I at 18, I guess I wasn't as afraid of it. I'd gotten my massage license a couple months prior. I originally went to go work for one of the franchises, and the other part to that story is at the time I was pregnant. I was pregnant with my second child actually at
Mm,
18.
yeah.
And I went on maternity leave that January. I started working in August for the franchise and had a
Hmm.
couple of clients that reached out through some marketing that I was doing for myself on the
Hmm.
side. The franchise didn't mind that I was doing this because I was in a different town technically. You know how we are in Austin, all on top of each other. But I was
Right.
technically in a different town.
I'm always
So
surprised at how small Austin is for real.
I I know Austin itself really is. It's all the rest of the metro area that makes it
Yeah.
large.
Yeah.
So yeah, they didn't mind that I was getting my own clients, and so I did. I did some marketing on Craigslist at the time because again, this was prior to it being weird and creepy. This was back in 2007, I guess. And had my first couple of clients, and by the time I came back from maternity leave, I had taken what was supposed to be my 1 day per week working for myself, and it ended up being like 3 or 4 days per week. I was only working one or two for the franchise by then. And then again, just kind of started building from there. And the reason I had wanted to do marketing is because I felt like I had a natural inclination toward it, and I did. So I guess at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I don't need a degree in this. I'm doing it well anyway. Let me go get a degree in something else.
Love it. Love it. No, I'm glad to hear that that's kind of how you got there because, I'm sure there's some parents listening or someone with um an individual that they have influence over somewhere in their atmosphere. And so what I heard there, and this is something that I'm even taking as a mother, I know this already, but it's always good to be reminded what you expose kids to and what you expose your offspring to or those who you influence to, that is what they are going to want to model, what they're exposed to. So if we model You got to go and you have to work for somebody else, and you're not enough unless you get that 4-year degree. And you got to know your major before you go to college. If we model that for them, that is what they're going to do. I have an 8-year old. I think I told you this. And probably after I saw you, I took her to this CEO circle meeting that I had. And my intention was, let me just have her be in a room. I've already helped her start a business, but let me just have her be in a room. Let's get the information in her subconscious. One day she's going to use it. But I had no idea how she was going to use it just that day. She like created her own video. She had business cards by the time she
Nice.
left. And I'm just over there in the corner like, that's my baby. That's my baby. Even though I know I've exposed her to these things, the way that she's taking it and running with it shows that
Mhm.
this is the work that I'm supposed to be doing. I have to model for her what I have to do, what I need to do for myself, right? What makes me happy. And I heard you mention that as well. And then they're going to follow and feel like they are able to operate in their purpose and follow their dreams. In that video, that was what it was about. It was follow your dreams. She said, I don't care if if you want to be a babysitter, babysit your dog and just practice, follow your dreams. But I love that your early exposure is what gave you that confidence, because look, now you went through the corporate America path, but now you are back in entrepreneurship, right? And probably
Oh,
more
I've
confident
decided I
than you
can
were
never work for
before.
anybody again.
Oh goodness, man, I will tell you. I try not to operate in absolutes. I do. I try my best. But unless
No,
God comes and
no.
taps me on the foot 7 times and says you have to go back to work, of course, there's a strategic plan attached. I love the freedom, the peace, the creativity of working for myself. And I hope that this episode would even be a beacon of light for others who are thinking about it, but maybe they don't think they can, or they don't feel like they have the necessary skills. Kara had it at 18, guys. She had it at 18 years old. So hey, it's never too late or never too early.
And it's not easy. I mean, like I said, I was pregnant with my second child. I had two kids by 19 and was running a business and was trying to do school before I was 20.
Love it.
I think I had about an average of 4 hours of sleep for those 4 years
Mm,
because there was just no time in the day to actually work on schoolwork. And so I was getting my degree in the middle of the night practically. And it's not easy. It's very hard work. I had a lot of grit and resilience at that point. I did have a lot of support from family. I wasn't 100% doing it on my own, but at the same time, it does take some effort. It's not something you can just wake up one day and decide to be an entrepreneur and um, think that this is just going to be the easiest thing ever.
absolutely. Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. And I hope that that's another podcast. Maybe that'll be our part 2 on how well rested you are as an entrepreneur now.
Oh, don't ask me that question right now. I'm in handbook season.
I know you are always doing the most, but hey, who wants to do the least, like Alicia said? So keep doing the
Oh, I
most.
know, I
But I
know.
do wish rest upon this season in your life. So no, I love that. And then you talked about you were doing that work in that organization and you weren't necessarily doing exactly what you love. You knew that. So probably somewhere in your genius brain, you were plotting a way to get back to the work that you loved. And sometimes, when we try to be in control of it, it doesn't happen for us. But something happened that was outside of your control in 2020. And
Yes.
when I tell you, you are the second person who I've interviewed who's told me that they got fired from a job and had a smile on their face. And for you, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to the gym. So let's go back to that day. Let's go back to that day. The mindset. You already knew you weren't doing exactly what you love, but you had started to play in it with creating your own LLC. But let's go back to that day of I got fired, and really with this too, share some advice or insight for that person who gets fired from their job and then they are ashamed of it. They feel like they're not enough. They feel like maybe they don't know what their next opportunity is going to be. Just with your knowledge and experience, kind of share some insight there and tell us how you were feeling that day.
As I can actually tell you some of that from an HR perspective, from somebody who works with
Love it.
practice owners, who works
Yep.
with CEOs and leaders. But first, I will say, now that I'm doing those things for myself in my own business, doing that marketing for myself, I do actually enjoy some of those things. Actually, to the point where I'm having to work with a mentor who is teaching me better how to delegate some of the things that are not revenue generating activities that I don't have to be the only person that can do them. So I have an assistant now that I am supposed to be handing some of those things off to, whether I like them or not.
Okay.
But I think at the time I just didn't enjoy doing them because I didn't really feel aligned with the mission for that firm anymore. I felt like the clients weren't being served in a way that resonated with me or aligned with my philosophies on how clients should be served, and it was just very difficult to market something I didn't believe in anymore. Now that it's for myself, totally different mindset. But going back to your question about day of termination, from the perspective of somebody who works with practice leaders, and that's what I call my clients, they're practice leaders because it's a medical practice. So business
Mhm,
owner, whatever fits you, boss, so on and so forth. There's a lot of reasons that people are let go.
mhm,
And everybody, just like everything, there are more than two sides to every story. There's his, hers, and what actually happened.
mhm. Yep.
And so the perception of the leader, that the employee is not performing the way that they want. I'm sure the perception of my former boss at the time was that, well, she's not doing work like she used to. She's coming in later. She's not, taking on as many projects. She's spending a lot of time on mundane things like data entry. I want her to be doing something else, and she's not doing something else, and I can't motivate her anymore. I would have fired myself too. I really would. I coach other business leaders on how to terminate their employees
Let
whenever
them
they have
go.
somebody that's like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And from that experience, and aside, from the data that I'm aware of at this point and the work that I do, I coach those leaders whenever somebody is constantly coming in late. Is there something that you can do to motivate them? Is there something that you can do to help make their job more interesting?
Yeah.
Um, but it's not the end of the world. There are jobs out there. There are plenty of jobs out there right now, especially there are industries that are scrambling for people
Mhm.
at this point. If you're willing to put in the work and willing to show up and be invested in that company, making sure that it's a good fit for you, there's a job out there for you. And so that day of termination may feel like you've put a lot of effort into something that isn't really yours at the end of the day. It's somebody else's company.
Yeah.
um, and it's painful and it hurts and it feels like a rejection, feels like a breakup for some people,
Yeah.
but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's really not. There are bigger and better things out there, and sometimes it's that kick that you need to move on to something bigger and better. I would have never started my own consulting firm. I was perfectly content to work under somebody else's liability, somebody else's company, to do the consulting that I like to do, dabble in it here and there, without actually taking on the full responsibility of running my own consulting firm. I would have
Yeah.
never left.
Yeah.
But I got that kick out of the nest that I really needed. And like a week later, I had business insurance, and a week after that, I had clients. So
Love it.
it all happened very, very quickly. I said, this is either going to be the best time in the world or the worst time in the world to start a human resource management consulting firm, because why do you need HR if you don't have a team? Everybody was laying their team off at that point.
Wow. Wow.
I worked to make it the latter of those, to make it the best thing that could have possibly happened. And
Yeah.
so far, I feel like I've succeeded in that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And even if they don't have a team, they need some HR systems and practices and to be compliant, they
Oh,
need support with
goodness,
those
yes.
things. So
Oh,
very, very
yes.
relevant.
Well,
Yeah.
and they brought the team back eventually, and so
Oh,
they needed
right.
help with that too.
Yeah. Yeah. They we let them go first and then we figure out we need them later down the line. I've been there before.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes. So no, excellent point around, when a company hires you, I mean, they're hiring you to generate revenue for them or to do
Sure.
ABC jobs so that they can be a profitable organization, or for a nonprofit, they can achieve their goals. And I love that you touched on, hey, I would have fired myself because I know I wasn't putting in 100%.
Nope.
In fact, for that person that's listening that's not happy in your job, there are cues and signals. Your boss might already know that. And so it serves you better to either admit that, because it sounds like a hard truth that we like admit that you're not happy and what behaviors am I displaying because I'm not happy in my job, and how can I get back to or find that thing that I love so I don't have to even worry about getting fired. What's that thing you'll do for free? Now, I know we out here to make money, right? But identifying that thing you do for free that will allow you to operate in your purpose and start getting ready for that. So you can be like Kara, who has niched it down to, which is what I'm going to talk about next, niched it down to I work with dental offices, right? I am HR specifically for dental offices. A lot of times when we see HR professionals, it's like, oh, I can go do HR for any organization. but because of your experience and you're going to tell me kind of what exactly pushed you that way. I heard the story, but you're going to give us a little bit more there. There's you could go work at several different companies, but for some reason you chose clinical HR and it is working. So for the HR person that's listening, give them some insight on maybe that's something they want to think about, a specific function of HR, a specific industry in HR they want to work for. Just give us some gems on that.
Well, HR person and consultant in general, that's actually something else that I do. I have a workshop specifically for HR professionals. I call them entrepreneurial HR
Love it.
professionals, ones who are wanting to start their own firm. It's called a consulting with confidence workshop. And it's for HR people who, you said I can cuss on this show, right? We're good? Okay.
Yeah,
Right. All right.
let's go.
It's for HR people that know their shit.
Okay.
They just don't know the business side of it. And they know that they can be a
Mm,
good consultant. They've been consulting possibly for their organization, or they've been an HRBP or an HR director, and they just aren't confident in the business owner side. They've got a little bit of that imposter
mm,
syndrome. They know they can do one thing, but can they really run their own business? So we have a 6-hour workshop that I mastermind with them, and get very hands-on and figure out, really drilling down what it is they enjoy doing. Because oftentimes I talk to them and other consultants too, not just HR. And I say, what are you doing? Who are you serving? And they're like, well, I want to work with small businesses. Okay, great. That's not niching. That's like 95% of the businesses in the country. that is not narrowing down your target market. You can narrow it down by industry. You can narrow it down by services, maybe even location. I have some that only want to work within their state because they're very familiar with their state laws, and that's fine. Great. Especially if you're in a state like California, my goodness, you've got more work than you can possibly handle. So you may as well just stay there.
yeah.
But really drilling down and figuring out what you enjoy doing, and that's the first thing that I ask them. I say, what do you like to do? What is it that you're passionate about? Because I will have consultants that come out of tech, for example, and they'll say, well, I've worked with tech, and if I'm going to go ahead and work with other tech companies, I need to do recruiting, and I need to do payroll, and I need to do this. Da, 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 da. Okay, do you like doing those things? Because if you don't, you're not really building a business, you're building a job, and you're going
That's
to hate it in
far.
18 months.
Mm, that's good.
So I call myself a little bit of a diva consultant. I don't do payroll. I don't do recruiting. I don't do HRS implementation. I work with clients in typically one of three areas: policy development, employer relations, and total compensation. Those are my things that I really enjoy doing. I'm passionate about. That's my jam. I can talk all day about them. I do
Yeah.
presentations on them. I teach other people about them. That is how I work with my clients. I am very, very specific, not just in the industry that I serve, but in the way that I serve them. And I've
Yeah.
done that very intentionally, and like I said, very successfully at this point.
Yeah, that is amazing. I mean, to your point, you don't want to build a job while you're building your business. You want to build a career. You want to build a business and a career doing something that you will love. Because absolutely, and I have been there. It was less than 18 months. Went back to something I didn't love, and I was done in less than 5 months because it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't a part of my purpose.
Mhm.
So no, thank you for sharing that so much. And before I wrap up, as you were talking, I thought about a specific client that um, I was speaking to recently and has probably about 20 years of HR experience. And I'm sharing this just for anybody who's listening, especially because I got the HR diva on with me today. But about 20 years of HR experience, various corporate level, field level, but was feeling like because she didn't have enough corporate experience or this many years like she thinks everybody else had, was like, okay, I'm going to go and stay on the job for 4 more years so I can get this specific experience. And so when I'm listening to her, I'm just sitting here like, well, I've worked with this individual before. I'm like, you're one of the best HR people I have ever met. Like,
You already have it.
what are you looking to do? Are you looking to
Yes.
do all the things, or is there specific things that you already have skills in that you can go and start because she wants to start an HR business? Well, you can start practicing now because you were building while you were working. Um,
I was. I was
yeah.
actually consulting basically about a year or so after I finished my degree, because I was working at a financial firm where clients would ask questions of my boss, the CPA, CFP, CGMA, and all the rest of the acronyms he has in his alphabet soup. Um, and they weren't questions that he could answer because they weren't financial questions. They were HR questions. And I
Mm,
had the answer. So I
mm,
would supply the answer and get more questions. I was
yeah.
consulting like at the age of 23, practically.
Mm,
You don't have to have 20, 30 years of experience and 15 different certifications to be a consultant. You just have to know this much more than what somebody else does to be able to help them. Obviously, you
Yeah.
need to make sure that you're accurate at that. And that
Yeah.
compliance, I'm a compliance expert. That's what I do now. So that was something that, I built over time, but I was doing those little baby steps of consulting, even just a year or so out of school.
Yeah.
Before I got any of my HR certs. I work with people who have 20 years of experience and they have this like 10-year plan for when they're going to start their own firm. And I'm like, why? You've already got it. I talked to one, he had been working in a specific niche. He was working with veterans, I believe is what it was, a very specific niche in a specific area. He had his HR background and he had exactly what he was going to do, but he had this 10-year plan laid out for
Yeah.
he was going to go back to school and get this and then do that and da, da, da. And I'm like, but you already have your okay. Why?
Yeah.
Just do it. But that's that imposter syndrome that tells you you can't. And sometimes you just need somebody to smack you around and tell you that you're lying to yourself.
Hey, that's what coaches and strategists are for. But no, in the
Hopefully less
cherry on top.
violently.
Yeah, yeah, right. We're not gonna physically slap you, but we're gonna get you with those words though. We're gonna make you think while you before you go to bed at night. You're gonna be questioning and challenging yourself. And then to your point too, is you don't need to go do all that, but then also that cherry on top is what are the functions that you are or the skills that you already have that you know you love and you make and do forever. Or you reserve the right
Absolutely.
to change your mind. Like you could decide as
And
you're in the business that I'm gonna change my mind in 5 years, and I'm cool with that.
And you can keep growing as you do this. Just get
Yeah,
started with whatever
yeah,
it is. I started my firm while I still had my certified professional, my CP through SHRM, which is
mm-hmm,
their more junior certification.
mm-hmm,
That first year, I went and got my senior certification and got senior certified with another HR organization. So I ended up
yeah,
with both of those, but I didn't start with them. The year
mm,
after that, I got certified as an everything disc workplace facilitator. The year after that, I've now been certified as a five behaviors certified practitioner through
mm-hmm,
Wiley. I constantly, probably about every year or so, get at least one new certification in something or learn something. I am absolutely not saying you never need to learn or never need to grow and
right,
develop
right,
yourself.
right.
You should always be doing that,
Intentionally.
but
Yep.
but you don't have to do it all first.
That's right. That's right. No, hashtag get started. If you're watching this, put that in the chat. Just get started right now. And I'm definitely going to point my friend and client to your course or to your workshop.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's for. We're in community with one another. So this is, I would never talk about it as eloquently as you just did. And I think that there'll definitely be some value there. So you have shared such, like I said, your unique story. And when we were talking, sitting down for lunch, we were like, I was like, people don't have to take the normal path. And I think you said something to the tune of like, what the hell is normal? Like
No, but normal isn't normal.
you create your own normal, and it's nobody else's normal. And so, Kara, I appreciate you for bringing your authentic and transparent self, for sharing your story with us. Some people don't like to come on a podcast and say I got fired, right? Like just being open and honest with us, because again, there's people who go through these things and they need to hear from successful industry experts on how there was peace and success on the other side of a challenge that they went through. And I think you've done such a great job displaying that today. So before I
I can
wrap up,
honestly say it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
yes, and see there it goes, the best thing that ever happened. One day I'll be able to tell my story when the time is appropriate on that piece. But I will honestly say right now it was internally, externally, it was the best thing that happened to me as well. I was confused about it when it first happened, but I now can say for
Sure.
sure that it was what got me where I'm at today. And if I had stayed
Professionally, of
there,
course, our
yeah, yeah,
kids and whatnot. No,
yeah.
we're not saying that the business matters more than the
don't
kids,
get
but
don't get kicked out
professionally,
of
it was the
school
best
either,
thing.
right? Love it, love it. Yeah, my kids, God, all that stuff. That's the best thing that ever happened. But one of the along that top five with 5 minute career
Yes.
hack, being terminated so that I could be delivered to my new purpose, was
And
an
helping so
absolutely
many
immense
people. I
blessing.
love what you're doing here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. No, we this is a joy for me. If I could do this, just the podcasting all day long, I would, because it's so fun. I love talking with like-minded individuals like yourself. But again, I just know that when people listen in, I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel inspired to do, again, be delivered to whatever their purpose is. And you've helped us do that so well today. So I'm going to let you wrap up. And a question that we sometimes ask, and I'm trying to be consistent with that because Alicia did it last time. So if you had 5 words that you would want to share with the audience, and I didn't tell you about this, so if you need to breathe and think, or maybe you're so good though, you probably got like 10 lists of 5 words over there. But if you had 5 words that you would share for either the HR professional or the aspiring business entrepreneur, what would you share as a 5-word hack that you'd give someone?
Oh, I mean, are you asking for 5 random words or like a 5-word sentence?
Hey, 5 random words or a 5-word sentence. Hey, either one.
For my 5 random words, balance, integrity, compassion, service, and adaptability.
Come on.
Those are the 5 things that really drive me and my business and my passion and my career at this point.
Love it. Love it. Say them again one more time. Balance, integrity.
Service, compassion, and adaptability.
Love it. Love it. I love that. Thank you so much. And I'm sure at least one of those words is going to spark a fire in somebody's brain of where they need to start moving and thinking differently. And I just appreciate you so much, Kara. I'm glad we met. Thank you. And shout out to Lisa Blanton, who introduced us. She is phenomenal. One day we're going to have her on as well. But I look forward to future work with you, getting to know you more. And again, we appreciate you sharing your gifts, your talents, your skills, your insight with our audience.
Thank you, Candace. It was an honor to be here. Truly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
I truly hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed doing it for you. However, it doesn't have to end there. Come on over to our Facebook group community right now for free. You're going to get exclusive content that we weren't able to include in this episode as well as past episodes. We've got challenges, we've got research, we've got lives, you name it, all for you in bite-sized chunks so that you can continue this development journey. Go ahead, click the link right now in the description show notes, and we'll see you there.